27 shots, 2,500 passes since their last World Cup goal, 0 goals on the night, 0. That is what Spain, the reigning European champions, the #1 ranked tournament favorites, managed against a country with a population smaller than most major cities, a country playing their very first World Cup match in history, and the man who single-handedly stood between Spain's superstars and destiny, a 40-year-old goalkeeper who his own teammates affectionately call Granny. Welcome to World Cup 2026. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is guaranteed. Welcome to SoccerVault. I'm breaking down one of the most jaw-dropping results of this entire tournament. Spain 0, Cape Verde 0, the scoreline that sent shockwaves around the planet. Let's get into it. Let me set the scene, because context here is everything. Spain are not just Group H favorites, they are one of the genuine favorites for the entire 2026 World Cup. Two-time world champions, the reigning European champions, a squad that reads like a dream team, Pedri, Gavi, Ferran Torres, Rodri, anchoring a midfield most international managers would give anything for, and the most electric 17-year-old on the planet in Lamine Yamal. Spain are a well-oiled, possession-playing, press-triggering machine that won Euro 2024 with ease. They were expected to waltz through Group H. Cape Verde, also known as Cabo Verde, are an island nation off the west coast of Africa. Their total population? Under 500,000 people. This was not just their first World Cup match. It was their first ever appearance at a World Cup. Full stop. Their goalkeeper, Gilson Varela, known as Vozinha, is 40 years old. To put that into perspective, Erling Haaland is 25. By the time Haaland reaches Vozinha's age, we'll probably be watching World Cup 2041. Group H also included Uruguay and Saudi Arabia, who played on the same day and drew 1-1. Every team went into that evening on 0 points. Every single point in this group is going to matter enormously. Spain came in knowing exactly what was at stake. Let's talk about Vozinha first, because this man deserves his own documentary, let alone his own segment. 7 saves. 7. From Spain. Spain, who have Gavi and Pedri threading balls through the eye of a needle. Spain, who move the ball faster than most teams can track. 7 saves in one match against the European champions. Vozinha stopped everything. A thundering early header, a clutch close-range stop in the second half that had the Atlanta crowd on their feet, and a late intervention from Dini Borges that would have given Cape Verde the most insane upset victory in World Cup debut history. At 40 years and 12 days old, Vozinha became the oldest player in history to appear in a nation's World Cup debut. Let that sink in. Older than the entire concept of Cape Verde at the World Cup, because this was the first time they'd ever qualified. And when the final whistle blew, he had gained 8 million Instagram followers overnight. Not because of a transfer, not because of a controversy, because he stood in a goal and refused to let the European champions score. That is the raw, beautiful power of this tournament. And then the backstory got even better. His mother almost couldn't make it to the game because of visa complications. A local congressman had to intervene to help sort her documents. She made it to Atlanta. She watched her 40-year-old son stop Spain. She watched him write World Cup history. I am not emotional about it. You are emotional about it. Here is where the pain really starts for the La Roja faithful. Because Spain's dominance in the statistics was genuinely staggering. 27 shots, 72% possession, hundreds of passes in the attacking third, and not a single goal. Luis de la Fuente's side were tactically predictable in a very specific, damaging way. They crossed from deep. Cape Verde blocked everything. They played low cutbacks. Cape Verde had bodies in every lane. Ferran Torres was completely off the pace, contributing almost nothing in an attacking third where he is supposed to be a difference maker. Alvaro Morata, leading the line, barely got a meaningful touch. The fullbacks bombed on, the midfield recycled, the wingers cut inside, and Vozinha kept saying no, over and over. The most damning stat of the evening? Spain have now attempted 49 shots and completed 2,500 passes across tournaments since their last World Cup goal, which came in the 11th minute against Japan at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar 4 years ago. That is not a one-match problem. That is a structural, clinical failure that stretches across campaigns, managers, and generations of talent. And here is what really gets me. Lamine Yamal came off the bench at 71 minutes. Lamine Yamal, the most exciting young player on the planet. He immediately made 5 dribbles, the most of any player in the match. 5 dribbles in 19 minutes. And it still wasn't enough. When your most creative weapon is being deployed as a 60% substitute option, something has gone terribly wrong with your starting setup. Let's not make this only about Spain's failures, because what Cape Verde executed tactically was nothing short of brilliant. Pedro Brito's side set up in a disciplined 4-4-2 defensive block and invited Spain to play in front of them. They had one mission: frustrate, absorb, and survive. And their most extraordinary statistical fingerprint? Cape Verde completed just 14 passes in Spain's half across the entire 90 minutes. 14. According to Opta records stretching back to 1966, that is the joint lowest figure ever recorded by any team in a half of football at the World Cup. They touched the ball in dangerous areas as little as possible. And it worked perfectly. This was not parking the bus and getting lucky. This was a precise, professional execution of a game plan against the European champions. Every player ran. Every player tracked back. Every player made themselves available for the defensive block. When Vozinha was not saving shots, he was commanding his penalty area with the authority of someone who has 2 decades of professional football behind him. Because he does. And with Dini Borges almost stealing 3 points in injury time, there is a legitimate case to be made that on the night, Cape Verde deserved more than a draw. Here is my take, and I genuinely want you to argue with me in the comments. Spain's squad is brilliant on paper, but fundamentally broken in attack. This is not a one-match blip. They have had this goal-scoring crisis since Qatar 2022. Luis de la Fuente has built a team that controls possession beautifully, presses intelligently, and does everything right except score when it matters. Morata is not the answer. Torres is not the answer. And choosing to bench Lamine Yamal, the most explosive player in world football right now, for the opening 70 minutes of a World Cup group game against Cape Verde? That is a managerial decision that deserves serious scrutiny. Starting the most creative player you own against a team that defends deep and in numbers is not a luxury. It is a necessity. I will go further. If Spain face a well-organized, compact defensive side in the knockout rounds, a team with a clear plan, the way Cape Verde had a clear plan, Spain will struggle, European champions or not. Am I being too harsh? Drop your take below. Tell me I'm wrong. In Group H, every team now sits on 1 point. Spain, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay, completely level after matchday 1. It is the most tightly balanced group in the 2026 tournament. Spain face Saudi Arabia next on June 21st at Atlanta Stadium. And they absolutely must win. Not win comfortably, not eke out a 1-0. They need to score, they need to dominate, and they need Lamine Yamal from minute 1. Saudi Arabia drew with Uruguay and will not roll over. Cape Verde take on Uruguay on the same day at Miami Stadium. Uruguay are physical, clinical, and experienced in tournament football. Darwin Nunez provides a direct aerial threat that will test Cape Verde's backline in a completely different way from Spain. Can Vozinha and his teammates produce another defensive miracle? Group H's matchday 2 on June 21st is going to be absolutely unmissable. If Spain drop more points, we are looking at a genuine group stage crisis for one of the tournament favorites. And if Cape Verde take anything from Uruguay, We are witnessing the greatest underdog story of 2026. That is it from me on Spain 0, Cape Verde 0, the most shocking result of World Cup 2026 so far. 40-year-old Vozinha became an overnight legend. An entire island nation of under 500,000 people held the European champions scoreless. And Spain has a major problem heading into the rest of the group stage. Subscribe to SoccerVault for daily World Cup breakdowns. We cover every talking point, every tactical detail, every controversy, so you never miss a moment of the most incredible football tournament on earth. Smash that like button if you think Spain are in genuine trouble, and drop your take in the comments. Can De La Fuente fix this before it is too late? I will see you in the next one.